So we are Pete and Amy Sauer from the United States. We have spent 25 years or so delivering sailboats, mostly around the United States, Pacific Ocean, Atlantic, and spent a lot of time in Mexico. We started sailing as racers and later started delivering boats in the 90s, and then became cruisers on this boat, primarily beginning in 2019. So this boat that we're on is the actual model of it is an Ocean Flyer 55. It was designed by Brooke and Eubanks in New Zealand. It was intended for high latitude sailing. It's made of aluminum. It was also built in New Zealand by the Weidewick Boat Builder company. And many people have commented, including the designer, that the man who built this boat was a craftsman, and I would agree. It's very nicely built. It in no way appears to be homemade. It's a curved, rounded hull design. It's not hard chined like many metal boats, and they use the proper alloys. And the boat really is very strong, and that's why we chose this boat in the beginning. After we've sailed literally thousands of days and thousands of hours and miles on other people's boats, we chose this boat as our cruising boat to cross oceans. We are just finishing up here in French Polynesia, just at 30,000 miles in the last 4 years. We left Seattle, Washington in 2022. We spent a season in the west coast of Mexico in Baja, and down as far south as Zihuatanejo. The boat was on the hard then in Mexico during hurricane season in the northern port of the Sea of Cortez. And then we relaunched in October, and we sailed to Panama. And then that was an interesting time. We don't have to get too far off of that, but that was the year of the drought. So it was a difficult time to get passage through the Panama Canal. But as a testament to the boat, we sailed very quickly. We managed to make Mexico to Panama in 10 days, which is pretty fast. That's about 1,800 miles of sailing, and we managed to do it in 10 days. Unfortunately, we were not able to stop in Costa Rica and all the fun places, but that's okay. So from Panama, we sailed up through the Windward Passage between Jamaica and Haiti, and made our way back to the United States. And then shortly thereafter, we sailed across the Atlantic, our first Atlantic crossing, to the Azore Islands. And
My first Atlantic crossing, your
oh
second.
yeah, I guess I sailed before. And then to the coast of Portugal, and from there down to Gibraltar, and then to the Balearics, Ibiza, Mallorca, and then across the Mediterranean to Sardinia, and then down to Sicily, and across to mainland Italy, through the Straits of Messina, which was pretty exciting. Very interesting place to sail. A lot of current there. And then across to Montenegro. So we laid the boat up in Montenegro because of Schengen, or we probably would have just kept going. We went back to the United States for a period of time, and then we came back. And now this is the leg that we're just completing now, which is from Montenegro to Greece. So Montenegro in August of last year, and Greece. We spent some time with charter guests in Greece, and then back through again to Sicily, Straits of Messina, across the top of Africa, which is probably not advisable. Very rough there. We had a rough go, not sailing so much, but with the government. We were approached a couple of times by different boats with machine guns, which we didn't enjoy. But nevertheless, we carried on to Morocco, Tangier, and then to the Canary Islands, back, down to the Caribbean. We made landfall in St. Lucia, and then down to Grenada. From there to Curacao, and then Colombia, Cartagena, and then across to the San Blas Islands again. That loop there was something like 17,000 miles, I think, San Blas to San Blas. From there, we sailed across the Pacific to the Marquesas here just 8 weeks ago, and then here we are in French Polynesia. So a few things about the boat that I think make it unique. It's a very strong boat. We've talked about that. It's a low maintenance boat. It's relatively simple. It's not a complicated boat to either sail or to maintain, but it's a fast boat. It's got a long water line. The overall length of the boat is 55 feet. The water line is about 50. The beam is 13 feet 9 inches, which is relatively narrow for that length of waterline. So the boat's relatively fast, especially in the trades. We didn't average 200-mile days, but we were able to do 200-mile days regularly. And that's important, I think, when you're trying to stay out in front of weather, that sort of thing, to be able to sail fast if you want to. So we're sitting underneath this Dodger right now, which we added to the boat back in 2022 in a fairly major refit. And this Dodger is intended to be stood on. It's strong enough to stand on and support our weight. Both of us can be up there. And that's pretty helpful when you're furling the main, that sort of thing. The boat's set up very easily for us to sail. It can be sailed single-handed if need be. The controls are in the cockpit that are all reachable. I've reefed and unreefed many times myself, and I don't know if you have ever by yourself, but it can be done. And the staysail is self-tacking, so really the design idea of short-handed sailing long distances, I think this boat's very good at that.
So I'm just going to share a little of my background of sailing, which isn't a lot. I didn't start sailing until I was an adult. My daughter actually got me sailing, and I actually started racing with Pete. So my initial introduction to sailing was only racing. So the cruising was very foreign to me. When we looked at this boat, and as he was examining it, because he's got the background, he's been sailing his whole life, I kind of trusted him with that part of it. but I think he chose correctly. This boat is very safe, and not coming from a background of sailing, being out in the open ocean can be unnerving when you can't see land for days. Things that I really like about this boat are the tall lifelines. I feel very safe walking around the deck, even under sail and inclement weather, big waves. He was very good about safety features on the boat. We have lots of anchor points, and we're always tied in, which I always feel very good about. The Dodger was a huge plus, feeling protected when you are in storms and underway. I like that it's very simple. It's very utilitarian. It's nothing fancy, but it's very comfortable. The galley is large. I have no problems cooking underway, other than the rogue wave once in a while. But you learn. It's been a great experience, and I'm super glad that this was the boat that I started cruising on with him.
Yeah, but we had some experiences together in our deliveries on other boats.
Yeah.
We learned quickly what we didn't like.
Right. Yeah, for me, the unknown. I didn't like the unknown, getting on a boat that I didn't know, and what was that sound? And I even do that sometimes on this boat, but it's I always know that it's nothing big.
All right, so we're on deck with Big Sky, talking about the rig setup. The mast is an aluminum double spreader rig. The spreaders go all the way out to the gunwales, which makes for a very strong rig. The boat is not very beamy. It's relatively narrow, and so therefore the Genoa sheets to the gunwale, which makes it fast in the trade winds, and off the wind sailing, which is what the boat is designed to do. The rig is tapered at the top, and so that gives you a little bit better upwind performance. We have 2 head sails, a roller furling 130% Dacron Genoa with UV cover, and then we have a self-tacking staysail also on a roller furler, and like I said, it's self-tacking. There's a track in front of the mast there. We have fore and aft lower spreaders, and then we have your standard diagonals and cap shrouds. All the standing rigging, I don't know if you can see it with your camera there, all of your standing rigging is die form, compact strand wire, which is quite a bit stronger than your standard 1x19. And it's lighter weight for its strength. So it's stronger than the 1x19 wire of the same diameter. We have running backs, which are here. They're die-form. Excuse me, they're not die-form, they're Spectra. And they're just stored with this block and tackle. There's another system that we use to rig them when we need them. They're used to go upwind with the staysail. Most of the controls, almost all controls, are inside the cockpit, with the exception of the tack reef on the main. So we do come to step out into the mast here outside the Dodger to reef, which is quite simple. The whole thing takes, well, we can reef in about 2 minutes once you have some practice. Everything else is controlled inside the cockpit, including tacking the sail. Like I mentioned, the staysail is self-tacking and the sheet is actually inside the cockpit. So once you're set up and reefed, even in 40 knots, you can sail the boat entirely protected by the Dodger. Okay, so we're on the bow of Big Sky. We're talking about our ground tackle. We have about 450 feet of 3/8 chain, and there is a Rockna 40 kilogram at the end of that. That anchor was new in 2022. So we lift it with this 3,500 pound Maxwell. It's a hydraulic windlass, and we'll talk about how that operates. It can be, there's a foot switch here, there's a remote in this locker right here, and it can also be operated from the helm. We generally just use the foot switch. In order to operate the windlass, we have to have the motor going, but most boats do that anyway, have their engine running when they're operating their windlass, even if it's electric. And then off of the main engine, there's a hydraulic pump to operate this, along with some of the other hydraulically operated equipment. So moving back, we have this forward storage locker. There's a lot of stuff in here. First of all, there's a A3 asymmetrical spinnaker in this bag, which typically, like most spinnakers, doesn't have a lot of hours on it. It's maybe been flown 10 days. You can see a large coil of rope. There is 600 feet of 1 inch diameter 3-strand, and that is connected to a large para anchor, a sea anchor, which is it's underneath these fenders. But also there's a complete secondary backup anchor system in here with about 300 feet of chain. It's underneath that, and it comes out that hose pipe over there, and with that cap on it. The backup anchor is actually on deck. It probably needs a little bit of attention, but we store it on deck there. It's a large Danforth. Other things in here are the holding tank for the forward cabin is right here. It's a relatively large holding tank. It's about 25 gallons, I believe. And then we store a lot of other things in here. There's some fishing gear. There's some garden hoses. There's a full extra halyard in here for the longest halyard. There's also a manual bilge pump controlled from inside the boat that is used to evacuate water out of this area. This is a watertight bulkhead, so if we had a collision, water should not ingress into the boat itself. So this compartment would take water, but the rest of the boat should not. We're on deck with Big Sky, talking about the ventilation in the boat. You can see we have a number of Dorade vents. There's 3 here on the foredeck. There's 2 more just forward of the Dodger, and there's 2 more aft. And then something that we find very beneficial are these reverse opening hatches. So these are not made anymore, but we really like them. You can just switch them around like that, and if you're in a marina or something like that, you can have air coming into the boat either way, which we've really appreciated. So as well, the Dodger in a marina, the Dodger acts like a large wind scoop and drives wind down inside the boat, which we like. We also have 2 hatches in the cabin top, in the Dodger top there. So Dodger was custom designed and built in 2022 in Seattle by Precision Weld. This Dodger is built to stand on. We used real marine glass, the Diamond Sea glass out of British Columbia. So the company that built this Dodger built offshore fishing boats for Alaska, and we contracted with them to build this custom Dodger, which really is probably one of the best features on the boat. We're dry all the time. We've sailed the boat into 50 knots without really ever having, unless you go on deck, but without getting wet. It's really very much adds to the comfort of the boat. So we have covers that go over most of these windows. We don't have the side covers, but we got them all around the front, which are the visible ones. So like in a marina, or even when the sun's coming down, we can reduce the heat in the boat by putting these covers on, sunshades. Well, we're inside the cockpit on Big Sky. Something that, having delivered a lot of boats, including across oceans before, I found it very beneficial to be protected from the weather at any point. So we installed the chart plotter here, and this is the autopilot control. So when you're sailing, you can reach the winches without having to exit the boat, and you can steer using the autopilot right here. You can see your heading. Maybe most folks maybe are familiar, but you can overlay the radar on the chart with the chart plotter. So everything can be done in the cockpit. Once you're set up and sailing, you got your sails up, You don't have to leave the cockpit, which I think is key. And I mentioned before, this winch is power, electric, to raise and lower, raise the sail. And then all the stay sail sheets right here, the reefing occurs right here, with the exception of the tack of the main, which we go to the mast to do that. The main sheet winches are 2-speed 56 Lumars, and they are manual. And then the utility winches back here are used for the preventers and for the running backs. We find that the cockpit is quite secure. It's deep. You'd have to try pretty hard to fall out of this boat, I think. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you would have to try pretty hard. There are a lot of handholds around the boat, and especially in the cockpit area for when you're on deck. We have fixed point safety tethers. If it's rough, we just clip in right here. They're already in place and ready to go. One for the helm, two for crew. And we just think about safety as much as we possibly can. There's a rescue knife right here if somebody needs to. It's a little rusty, but if you need to cut a line or something. So down here in the controls, this is the windlass control, anchor up and down. And then the engine control isn't my favorite place, but I would rather it was a little bit higher. But it's available here with the gauges, temperature, oil pressure, battery volts. So that's all protected inside the cockpit as well. There's an autopilot control here within reach of the helm. If like coming in and out of a marina or an anchorage is when I generally stand at the helm, and then I can control the autopilot, disengage with it right here. This is a secondary VHF radio, and we just keep a cover on it, or the sun, it's hard to, it'll fade it if you don't keep the cover on. But this radio has a dedicated antenna on the radar array. It does not share the antenna with the other radio down inside the cabin at the nav station. So in the event of a dismasting, we would still be able to communicate with, we have GPS up there, and we have our VHF. So, and you can also see on the radar post, which was all custom made by Precision Weld as well, the EPIRB, and that's the preferred location for an EPIRB, where if the boat were to go down, that is a self-deploying EPIRB, and it'll deploy as I'm stepping off of my boat. That's the theory. Also, we integrated an outboard mount into the radar pole, into the radar post, rather than having two separate apparatuses. This pole is much stronger than your typical outboard lifting mechanism, so this is the way we decided to do it. Talk real quick about the Starlink. This Starlink panel we will retain, but we have a secondary one that will go with the boat. It's the bigger Gen 3 Starlink. You obviously have your man overboard gear here. You got your throwable. We have man overboard flag. There's other items like this in this deck box. So this is a throwable beacon. That's to go. There's a generator in here, a gasoline generator. These are the covers I spoke about on the Dodger. We also have spray skirts that go on the lifelines. If you're going offshore when the waves break, we can mount them on the lifelines, and it prevents the water from coming in. There's a bunch of spare blocks, and the running back lines are in here. So that's what we have here. Of course, you got some creature comforts back here. You got a barbecue, fillet table for the fish, stern anchor. The gear for the stern anchor is in this locker. This is a dedicated fuel locker over here. There's 2 aluminum propane tanks in here, and then we normally have 3 diesel jugs in there, or I usually use them for gasoline, actually, for outboard and to run the generator. Right now this locker's got some garbage in it, so we're not going to open that one. You can see the dinghy. It's an Apex 10-foot dinghy, 15-horse Yamaha 2-stroke, probably the most popular outboard motor in the world, I think. Custom davits in the back here with the solar panel array. Each solar panel is 180 watts. So we have a decent amount of solar power. There's a regulator in the engine room that controls it. The radar on the top of the radar post is B&G. All the electronics on the boat are B&G, and that is 48-mile Doppler digital radar, which we found to be just incredible. It's the best radar we've ever used. So we have redundant autopilot systems on Big Sky. We have the new improved B&G model, which is controlled either by the chart plotter or this panel. You've got your standard control panel here. The on-off, the power switch for the autopilot is at the nav station on the power panel. Similarly, we have the original autopilot system. This is the on-off switch for the original autopilot. This is the engagement, manual engagement that takes over with the hydraulic ram, takes over for the wheel. Similar to if on the new system we just pushed auto or engage, then the hydraulic system takes over and the wheel is actually loose. It's unlike wheels that you see on most boats where the wheel turns with the autopilot. Ours does not. The hydraulics take over the steering of the boat and it disengages the wheel.
We are currently in the galley of Big Sky. And then we have the salon and the forward cabin up there that has 2 bunks. We currently have the top bunk as storage pantry, but it could easily be returned back to a bunk if you'd like. When we did our refit, we put a new Force 10 stove in. Previously it had a microwave and a trash compactor that we removed, trying to get the boat to 12 volt, and they were 110, so we didn't really need them. We do have a door for this, for where we have our garbage, but it was easier to not have the door. But if you wanted to have the door on, you could put it on to keep it hidden. We have freezer space here, and then we have refrigerator. Those 2 have the holding plates, and then this is a pass-through cold box in the front. All storage, also under refit, we replaced, there was tile back here, and we added the stainless steel, and the stainless steel tiling in the back. These are a handy feature. They're hidden storage here. We have toaster. There's a plug-in in the back, so there's toaster and a hard-boiled egg maker in there, but you could put whatever you want, and then the storage as well. Okay, so Big Sky is set up for 110, and it allows me 110 volt. It allows me to use a rice cooker or a blender or the toaster. But we do have USB set up in most of the outlets. I think we've switched all of them throughout the boat. In the salon here, the water tanks are under both of the settee here. Storage in the ends and in the back. Obviously storage under the floor. In here's the forward cabin with the 2 bunks. And you can see that we have turned this upper bunk into a pantry storage area. There's storage underneath this bottom bunk. This one they have leak cloths, all of them. And then forward here we have a head, which has an electric flush with salt water. All right, so as we move through Big Sky here in the hallway, outside the engine room, which we'll let Pete talk about, that's his domain. In here we have our foul weather gear, tethers, PFDs, that sort of thing. In here we have safety equipment, fire extinguisher, first aid kit, abandoned ship, an AED in here. This is kind of the toolbox. In here, Pete's got most of his tools, cordless, rechargeable batteries. This is also storage. It's kind of shared space. This is where the heater is here. and the tank is below. You can see lots of storage in the aft cabin here, the master cabin. Both sides, under the bed. The main thing under the bed is the hydraulic rams that I think you guys will look at later. In this, here we have the aft head, which has also the same, this is a full-size toilet with electric flush and salt water, and then a full-size shower.
All right, we're in the nav station of Big Sky. We have a secondary chart plotter here that can display all the same information and actually steer the boat from down here as same information as the cockpit. We have an opening lid desk, lots of stuff in there. People don't usually use charts, paper charts anymore, but this can store them if need be. So we have USB outlet there, run with an inverter, 3,000 watt inverter charger, Xantrex. We'll see it in the engine room. We have a secondary VHF radio that's got the antenna on the top of the mast, and it shares the antenna with the AIS. So we have an AIS splitter behind this wall. This is a brand new ICOM M803 SSB, and the tuner is in the back, and the rest of the radio is behind here. You have fuel and water gauges, and then you have your electrical panel. And finally, in here we have the controls for the diesel-fired furnace, which thankfully we have yet to need to use, and the inverter and the bilge pumps, and then we keep a handheld radio here, always ready to go. So now we're going to step into the engine room. You want me to go first? It's hot in here. All right, so we have, first of all, we have a Perkins 4-cylinder, 85 horsepower, industrial marine engine, 5,000, maybe 5,700 hours, something like that. It's been very well maintained, and it runs very well. So from there, you can see there's another Perkins engine up here. We don't use it. It can run the hydraulic cylinder system secondarily, but we generally just use the main engine. And there's a pump right here. This is a hydraulic pump which runs the hydraulic system. So on the hydraulic system are primarily two systems. The water maker is hydraulically operated and is the windlass. Other options could be, you could add engine-driven refrigeration if you wanted. The boat is set up for that. We don't use it, but it can be done. It would take a little bit of work to put that all together. So this is the steering system. It's a mechanical chain to a hydraulic, and then I don't know if you can, from that angle you can see, but the actual autopilot pump itself is right here. It's a LNS. So batteries over here, 3 AGM. There's the inverter. It's running right now. And then the controller, computer controllers. We have the solar panel controller there, and we have the autopilot controller there. So, and then this is the circuit breaker for the electric winch. Over here we have the water maker. It's a pretty basic system. It's run hydraulically, so we turn on the motor, we turn on the hydraulic pump, and then just these two switches here. This is the booster pump, which is right there, right here, and that provides the water to the water maker. This is the high pressure water maker switch once the motor's running, and then we just pressure up right here, and we're making water. It makes 30 gallons an hour. Right at the top of this gauge, it'll go right up to there. And so the membrane right now probably has about 2 months on it. We replaced it in Panama, and we carry a spare. So, and we carry many spares of these pre-filters, and I always keep track of when I replaced them. This one was just recently in May 30th. So this box is for flammables that we keep in here, fluids, things like that. Water heater is right here, 6-gallon stainless steel water heater, currently heated by this engine. If a person chose to run this engine, these hoses here could be plumbed so that you can heat the water with this engine. This engine runs, we just don't use it. There's a little bit of an issue with something mechanical in here. It's making a sound, so I chose not to use it. It's not necessary because everything can run off the main engine. You can see we have a Balmar alternator, 100 amp, and the controller's over there. I have some tools in here there's the controller right there, the blue one. Yep. And I have some tools in a toolbox here. Most of the tools I think Amy showed you out in the hallway. Simple things like this is the shower evacuation pump and filter. These are the strainers. This is the strainer for the motor, the big engine. This is the strainer for the water maker intake. There's 2 smaller strainers over here. One's for the toilet flush, and the other is for the secondary diesel. So, I mean, it looks complicated. It looks like there's a lot of stuff in here, but in reality, it's not that complicated. These are the hydraulic controls, which generally speaking, we don't mess with. It's all controlled by the electrical panel. You just turn on a switch or turn it off for the windlass and that sort of thing. This is the original autopilot system, which we did not remove and last used in 2019. It still worked. I haven't tried it since then, and I haven't touched it, so I assume it still works, and it's considered a backup. So this is the exhaust, obviously the exhaust system for the Perkins, and this is a hydraulic reservoir for hydraulic fluid. Fuel filter, just a Raycor, standard Raycor. The fuel capacity on Big Sky is divided into 2 tanks, fore and aft. They're on top of the keel, under the floorboards, under the belly of the boat. They total about 550 gallons, US gallons. About 300 in the aft tank, which is slightly larger. The forward tank is about 250. So it gives us quite a range. It's a slow turning diesel, so we run at about 1500 RPM. We take about 1 gallon an hour doing 6 knots. If we go up to 1700 RPM, we do about 6.5 knots, but we use about 1.5 gallons an hour. It gives us quite a range. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a lot. But what it really does is gives us the option to buy fuel when it's less expensive and not have to take fuel at whatever prices. When we were in the Mediterranean, fuel was very expensive and we didn't have to take any fuel there. We waited until we were all the way over in Montenegro where it was quite a bit less expensive. So it's a nice option to have. So these are the aluminum T-frames, which I guess I haven't spoken about, but you can see how closely spaced they are. That's about 19 or 20 inches, less than 2 feet. And that's a lot of the strength of the boat, how closely they are spaced. And of course, then the plating thickness on the outside. The other thing to notice here is that the boat is insulated. It's insulated all above the waterline. You don't typically insulate below the waterline on an aluminum boat or on a metal boat, but the boat is fully insulated for high latitude sailing above the waterline. We have a little bit of a workbench here. You can actually, as you can see, I'm standing up, and it's a nice place to be able to work. And like I said, I have my tools are at hand here, and so it's really a pretty good place to, I mean, you don't want to spend any more time than you have to in here, but it's a good place to work if you have to. It's a bit like an Atari video game from the 1980s, but this is actually the control module for the original autopilot. As I mentioned in the engine room, as far as I know, it still works. We used it in 2019 for over 1,000 miles before we put in a new steering system, which I showed you. So as far as I know, it works.